Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the BeFutureReady webinar series. This webinar series is designed to provide you with valuable information on a range of different topics to support you when thinking about your future and the potential career pathways open to you. Today marks our first webinar, and I'm delighted that we've got Cameron Ackroyd with us today. Before I hand over to Cameron, however, I'd like to remind attendees of the formats. So Cameron's going to run through a short 15-minute presentation on the topic of apprenticeships before leaving some time at the end to answer some of your questions. Please write your questions in the chat whilst the session is running, and we'll look to get to as many as we can before we finish up. Any questions we don't get to, we'll be sure to send around follow-up answers afterwards. So as I mentioned before, Cameron is going to be talking about his career pathway via an apprenticeship. Cameron is a degree apprentice. So Cameron, I'll hand over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending today's session. My name's Cameron Ackroyd, and I'm an electrical systems engineer degree apprentice at Bentley Motors in Crewe in Cheshire, for anyone that doesn't know where Bentley is. I work in the prototype build centre at Bentley, and for anyone that doesn't know what a prototype is the very first vehicles or any product that a company might make. It's the very first ones that they make in trials, to have experiments, testing, to see what needs fixing that's suitable for the market, what might be changed for customers that might make something a lot better for customer experience. Specifically, my role is working with the electrical side of it in the build support. So when there's an issue in building the prototypes, part of my job is to help fix those issues. This might be going back to engineers that own parts to look at how an issue could be resolved. So there's quite a lot of communication and team working involved in this. I also work in the high voltage integration side of it, so that's looking at hybrid vehicles. Bentley released their Bentayga 2 hybrid version very recently, as well as the Fly & Spur hybrid, which has also been released to the public. Finally, the other part of my job role is ECU integration. Now, an ECU is like a little computer inside a car, just like a laptop or a phone. These computers require updates, and as there's many across a Bentley, there's a lot of updates and work that needs to be done to make sure that these are suitable as they go through their stages of development before finally being released to customers in the customer vehicles. Currently, or I've recently finished a solo project that I've been running by myself to support prototype builds for my department as well. So in my apprenticeship, I've been trusted was a really important project to run myself. So when you're an apprentice, you do get involved in really important projects within your company. I'm just going to go through a little bit of my journey as to how I got to where I am now, just to give you guys a bit of an idea of what you might want to do in the future. I originally did my GCSEs and A-levels quite a few years ago now. So my A-levels I'd finished 5 years ago. My original plan was university, and unfortunately I didn't get the grades that I wanted for the unis that I'd applied to. So I ended up taking a gap year. I didn't really do much of that much relevance within that year, or I just worked at a garden centre for a year. But I did learn a lot of customer service skills and team working and working under pressure, which has come to help me now as an apprentice. That's when I first started looking at applying for apprenticeships. In that time, in that first year, I didn't receive any offers for apprenticeships. So I then ended up taking another gap year. I became a chef for part of that time, which is also not very relevant, but working under pressure again was another thing which has been very useful as an apprentice. Also during that gap year, I took on a equivalent to an A-level in a BTEC of engineering level 3, so just to get a bit more experience and to build my contacts within the engineering industry to get me the potential of getting a job. In that time, in that gap year, I also had 5 weeks work experience at different companies. So I had 2 weeks work experience at Bentley, where I'm working now. One of those weeks was in the department where I now have my apprenticeship. I also worked with Marla Powertrain, who work with the powertrains of prototype vehicles for many different car companies, along with Airbus in their design engineering sector at Broughton for their wings, and Atlas Copco, who make rivets for signs all across the world. It's not just signs that they do rivets for as well. They put lots of cars together with rivets or spot welds. So yeah, work experience is a really important part of how I got to where I am now, and it's something I definitely advise you guys to go and do as well. But the biggest thing, and it's in capital letters right at the bottom of my slide, is don't give up, because I was knocked back quite a few times. I didn't get what I wanted at any point in the timeline where I thought I would. It wasn't until 2 years after I'd finished my A-levels where I actually started a degree apprenticeship, whereas you guys might finish your A-levels and go straight into a degree apprenticeship. But yeah, don't give up, and if you know that you really want something, then make sure you go for it. Just to give you guys a little idea of what apprenticeships we do at Bentley, we've actually got 5 different types in terms of their level. So your level 2 is generally quite it's a basic apprenticeship for manufacturing roles, and we go all the way up to a master's apprenticeship for people that have been to uni. So you could choose that you really want to go to uni, but then you want to do a master's, so there's opportunity for sponsors masters. I'm on a level 6 apprenticeship, so that's a degree apprenticeship, but there is also options, as at Bentley and many other companies, for foundation degrees, part degrees, equivalents to A levels, and although that learning is what is very, very relevant to what you're going to be doing in your job role. So I'm doing a degree in electrical engineering, and my role is based in around electrical work. Just want to give you guys a little idea of the recruitment process to Bentley and how I got there. So initially, you'll be required to give a CV, a covering letter, and quite often role-related questions. So this could be to do with your suitability for the role, previous experience, and potentially relevant hobbies. Those questions are where the interviewers and hiring managers want to get to know you a bit better before they choose to bring you for an interview. CVs are really important as well. Make sure it's nice and clear, all your qualifications, and it's not full of text. Realistically, hiring managers don't have that much time. So when they scan through those applications and those CVs, they want to be able to see stuff really quickly to check that you're suitable for the role that they're offering for you. Then, if you're lucky enough to get through the CV and covering letter stage, which I was, you'll then go to an assessment centre. Now, some of the things that I had to do, I had to give a presentation on previous experience. So that was partially a little bit related to the role questions that I'd been given, but then I had to give a presentation on previous work, hobbies, and why I was a good suit to the role. I also spoke about a lot of role-related knowledge that I felt that I'd built across the past year or so when I was doing my work experience. In terms of team building activities, most apprenticeships quite often have a team building activity where you'll work together with other potential apprentices who are looking to be hired as well, and hiring managers will then look at how you work in a team on different activities. For me, I've previously built Lego towers, or I've done transport planning with little robots, all sorts of different tasks which might seem like toys, but there's always a situation or a scenario given to you as to what you need to solve. So then people will watch how you work in the team. One of the other big things is competency-based questions. Most job interviews ask competency-based questions. Now, the way to answer those is with the STAR technique, which is situation, task, action, and review. So they'll quite often ask for a situation where you've done something, or you've contributed, or where you've had an issue and you've had to come up with a solution. Using that situation, task, action, review method is the way that you can give an answer, and you make sure you cross off all the points on how you're telling that story and showing that you're capable of rising to a challenge that's given to you during a job. One of the other big things that I felt was important, and I've found was important across different job interviews, was having plenty of brand awareness on what the company that you're applying for actually does, their existing products. I was once asked by one company to name as many of their products as possible that they made. So luckily I had done my research, so I was very familiar with the company, but I was aware of other people who weren't as aware, and therefore potentially lost their opportunity by not being that aware of what the company was actually doing. One of the easiest ways to have a look at that is most big companies have a media section to their website, and you can have a look at all their releases on everything that they really want to showcase that they're doing to show people. Finally, I just want to give a bit of an idea on why I think apprenticeships are great. I think two biggest things for me are experience and networking. So for me, it'll be 4 years of industrial experience that I wouldn't have got had I have gone to university. I could have potentially gone for a sandwich year at a company, but that would have only been a year's experience, whereas I'm getting 4 years experience. And in that time, I'm also being able to build my networks for potential career opportunities in the future. Alongside that, I'm getting academic qualifications. So for me, that's my HNC, my HND, and then finally my degree in electrical engineering. But then alongside that, I've also got, and I'm taking part in professional training courses. So these are training courses that you would not be able to go to if you're at university. They're specifically for the company that I work for, and they're aiming to develop you as people. Two big myths that I quite often find are mentioned to me at apprentice events and recruitment events is how much you actually get involved in projects. And for me and for everyone I know, like the reason that you're brought on as an apprentice is because there is a job for you at the end, and managers have a job for you to do, so they do rely on you just like any other team member, but they also appreciate that you're there to learn as well, so they're very supportive of that. Finally, although you will spend a lot of time doing your education as well as your work, there is still opportunity for a good social life. So just as you would have a group of classmates in university, you have a cohort of apprentices that join the company at the same time as you, so you get to know them as friends just like you would university or school or college. So there's still that opportunity for a great social life. And of course, you get to build a social life with the people that you actually work with as well, because you might be the only apprentice in that department, like I am. So you get to build lots more networks as well. Finally, I believe we have some pre-written down questions for Q&A. So if you'd like to go ahead, I'll just find them.
Yeah, no, that's been great, Cameron. It's been really interesting to hear your journey through your own apprenticeship, and to find out a little bit more information. So yeah, we have had some questions come in. So I was wondering, actually, in your opinion, do you think apprenticeships are becoming sort of more or less popular?
I think they're becoming more popular for a few reasons. I think more and more people are looking at potentially not going to university and looking at other options out rather than just looking at university. But I think companies are also appreciating the opportunity to train workers, and that the government really supports this. So there's money available to help an apprentice training from a company's perspective. So not only is it great for the apprentices, it's actually also really good for the company as well.
Yeah, okay, that's great, thank you. And in terms of, I guess, your experience of your apprenticeship and providing insights, I guess, into Bentley, what was your experience of that? And is it often that apprentices tend to go on into the employment with the organisation that they actually did their apprenticeship with?
I'd say from what I know, about 95% of the people who've had apprenticeships go on to do, especially at Bentley, go on to have a role within the company, because the company have spent so much time investing money in you and time into you that it wouldn't really make sense for them to let you go and work for another company after being trained up for so long. So there's pretty much always an opportunity and a role for you once you finished your apprenticeship, because they've invested so much time and money into you that they really want you to be there as a worker for the future.
Yeah, and I guess on the flip side then, for you, in terms of being able to see what the company's like and how it's run, you've got those kind of special insights from doing your apprenticeship, so you know what kind of employer you're going into.
Yeah, exactly that. Occasionally you come across people, not necessarily at Bentley, but at different companies, where they've had that experience as an apprentice, but then for some reason they haven't been offered a job, but they've still got 3-4 years experience in a company which, had someone just gone to uni or just gone to college, they wouldn't have that. So that few years of experience can quite often get them a job a lot faster than someone just coming out of education.
Yeah, sure. And you've spoken a little bit, I guess, about kind of the need to, you've still got kind of the social life that's possible and all that kind of thing. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about kind of the work-life balance as an apprentice, so sort of the working hours, I guess kind of the income that might be able to be achieved while doing an apprenticeship.
So in terms of the work-life balance and the balance in terms of education, the government stipulates that you must have 20% of the time in your apprenticeship dedicated just to education. So for me, that's 1 day a week on day release, where I'll go to college or uni to do my work. Then on top of that, you've also got your own homework, and quite often I find when it gets to busy points in the year, I will be doing uni work most evenings after work. So it is busy by a lot of means. When you finish your apprenticeship and you go into a full-time role, you'll be going into the same sort of pay grade as like any other person working within your team within that department, because you're a fully qualified person. There's also the potential that you might actually go in slightly higher than other people in your team if you've been there longer, but as an apprentice you might actually be better experienced than them. So you'll find that most companies pay way above the minimum apprentice wage now as well, because it's recognised that opportunities like degree apprenticeships are actually quite hard roles, not only to get into, but to actually continue with as you go down the line. You're brought on for a degree apprenticeship because your managers want to give you a job, but at the same time they have work for you to do, so they rely on you. So I think the pay that you receive merits it being way above what an apprentice minimum wage would be that's stipulated by the government.
Fantastic, that's really helpful to know. And I guess just as a final question, would you mind telling us a little bit more about sort of the young ambassador network that's to do with apprentices? So sort of, are there any costs involved with being a member, and kind of what are the benefits of of being involved with that?
Yeah, no problem. So first of all, there's no costs involved whatsoever. For me, I haven't actually met any other Northwest young ambassador in the apprentice network yet in person because of the pandemic, but I have met them like this webinar today online for different events, and it's really useful for, again, as I've said before, building networks, whether it's within your own company, but obviously for this ambassador network, you're building networks and contacts from outside your own company. So that's also a really good thing to know, and you get to see how other apprentices experience their apprenticeship, and you might be able to help them along the way, or they might be able to help you if you have issues, whether that be with a training provider or just something on how you might learn something. It's a really useful network to have.
Okay, fantastic. Well, that's been so great to hear your story with degree apprenticeships and the insights you can offer. I'm probably out of time for the moment, but thank you, Cameron, for your presentation, and we'll make this available hopefully online to everyone else soon so they can rewatch it if they'd like to.
No problem. Thank you very much.